The early morning of September 22nd. You are awakened by a loud explosion. It's still dark outside, but the horizon. It has been illuminated by the artillery fire, turning it eerie orange-red. This is the opening of Operation Barbarossa, the largest ground invasion in human history. You started as an ordinary Soviet youth. Maybe they were still working in the fields the day before yesterday, or screwing in the factory. You suddenly put on an ill-fitting military uniform overnight. I stuffed a heavy Mosin-Nagant rifle into my hand. Become a Red Army soldier. Chaos was the only theme of the first few days. The blitzkrieg of the German army is like a red-hot knife. We broke through the Soviet Union's defense line like butter. Your troops are constantly retreating. The order is self-contradictory. We are determined to defeat them thoroughly. In this case, logistics supply system. I almost broke down at the very beginning. The kind of queue you imagine. From the steaming military cauldron, the scene of picking up food. It doesn't exist at all. Your first ration wasn't issued by your superiors. But it's the last piece of bread you brought from home. Or it's on the retreat path. I hurriedly put it in my pocket. Fry sunflower porcelain, you'll find out soon. The first enemy of war. It's not the German soldier across the street, but it's your own sense of emptiness in your stomach. The supply line has been cut off. The kitchen was also abandoned during the retreat. You and your comrades, being swallowed by a huge encirclement, become an isolated island that has lost contact with the rear. A surviving veteran later recalled that, in that hot summer, in order to travel light and quickly, many soldiers threw away their heavy coats. There are even precious provisions. This decision turned out to be fatal a few months later. The initial widespread perception of the long-term nature of the war, lack of preparation. You and countless comrades have paid a heavy price. You'll soon realize. This famine is not an accident. In the German army's battle plan, there is a cruel strategy called the hunger plan. The core of this plan. It means to let the Germans get their food locally, looting the food resources of the Soviet Union, attack our own army in rear area. At the same time, we let the occupied tens of millions of Soviet civilians and prisoners live and die on one's own. We even have a plan to starve them to death. Hunger from the very beginning. It's just a weapon that has been carefully designed. And you? Unfortunately, I have become the target of this weapon. And Stalin's response to the invasion of the German army. Some people think he has received a lot of reliable information, but we ignored it out of suspicion and misjudgment. Some people also believe that although war is inevitable, but the specific time and scale of the invasion, it's still unexpected. But for you who are on the front line, this high-level strategic game is meaningless. All you feel is sudden chaos. And the burning hunger in my stomach. The first lesson of war. It's what I give you with an empty stomach. Here, food is not a given supply. But it's a luxury that we need to fight and struggle for. After the initial chaos and hunger, if your troops are lucky enough, it hasn't been completely disrupted, and successfully re-established contact with the rear. So you can finally get your first one. True military rations in the real sense. He's not some delicacy. There isn't even a single hot dish. It is very heavy. Something that is black and emits a strong sour smell. The lifeline of Soviet soldiers. It's just black bread. This piece of bread is quite substantial in your hands. Official regulations. Soldiers on the front line. The daily dosage of black bread in winter is as high as 900 grams. There are also 800 grams in summer. This number sounds quite amazing. It's almost the main source of all your daily calorie intake, compared with the source in the besieged Leningrad. The daily bread of the common people, the minimum is only 125 grams. It was a small piece of lifesaver mixed with magazines. Judging from the surface data alone, as a soldier, you are already a priority for our protection. You break off a piece and put it in your mouth. The texture is very rich and full-bodied. Even it's quite rough. Its main ingredient is whole wheat flour made from rye. This makes it look almost the color of dark brown. And it has a strong sense of unique sour taste and the earthy simplicity of milk fragrance. Sometimes you can even taste a hint of coriander seeds. Or the smell of an isolator. That's the style of the famous Borachino bread. Teach me the recipe for this bread. A general during the Napoleonic War period. I'm interested in the recipe for this bread. It is itself a kind of wisdom to adapt to war. Rye is more cold resistant than wheat, more suitable for planting in most parts of Russia. especially after the Soviet Union lost that part of Ukraine. After the rich granary of Europe, the strategic value of rye becomes more prominent. Its density is extremely high. The acidity also makes it less prone to spoilage, very suitable for long-term storage and transportation. However, in the most difficult period, black bread may not be as pure as it seems. To increase the portion size, bread can be mixed with various fillings. For example, potato noodles, beetroot pulp as fodder. Even in Leningrad, Weichen and Zhangfuing are in such an extreme environment. We also encountered an unimaginable amount of sawdust. And as for wood chip bread, to what extent? It has been distributed to the frontline combat troops. We are still arguing about it until now, despite the existence of irrefutable photos and documents that prove the city that was besieged in the warrior galaxy. This kind of meal replacement bread really exists. But for the most urgent supplies, for the object's field army, is this situation common? It's still limited to the most critical situations. There is still no conclusion at the moment. You'll find out soon. The value of this black bread. It's more than just satisfying our hunger. In the front line, the ruble has almost become worthless. And the piece of bread you receive every day. But it has become the de facto hard currency. In the underground market where the soldiers sell their own itineraries, I can exchange a piece of bread for several cigarettes. Or a pinch of salt. In the broader black market, a common person might spend a month's salary. I can only afford a few pounds of bread. And there. 1 kilogram of black bread. You can even exchange it for 6 eggs, or 1/3 kilogram of meat. Your ration of food. It's not just your source of calories. It's also your economic capital. This piece of bread also has a unique little use. When it becomes old and dry, when I can't swallow, the soldiers will grind it down. Use these breadcrumbs. Add some thickener to the thin soup. Or be a bit more extravagant. Soak it in water. Add yeast. After a simple fermentation, we can make a kind of microalcohol. Gvasala, a fermented drink that is sour and sweet and very delicious. In the monotonous military life, this is a rare adjustment. As an old Russian proverb says, Kasha is our mother. Rye bread is our father. This rough and sour black bread. You are the most reliable person on the battlefield, the most reliable support. How many days have you been working on it? Even drinking black bread for several weeks, after drinking the cold river water. One day, you're standing outside and shivering with cold. Suddenly, I heard a noise from the rear, the familiar sound of horses' hooves, the squeaking sound of the wheels. A vehicle pulled by 2 horses and equipped with wheels. A weird thing topped with a scallion. We are slowly approaching your position. There is still a faint trace of smoke rising from the chimney in the village. Your veteran comrade patted your shoulder. I grinned. Say ciao. Goulash cannon has arrived. Of course, this is not a real cannon. But it's the Soviet Army's mobile field kitchen. It has a simple structure. It's just a stove with wheels. There are several big pots hanging above. We can live with firewood or coal. Its appearance. It means you can finally have a hot meal. Things in the snow and ice. The significance of a hot meal far exceeds the thing itself. It represents that the logistics system is still operating. It means you haven't been forgotten. It represents a long-awaited feeling. The illusion of living a normal life. A person walked out from behind the cannon. A guy wearing a greasy apron around his waist. He is your company's battlefield cook. He may not be a professional chef. Maybe before joining the army, I was just an ordinary collective farm. The manner, but at this moment, he is the most adorable person in your eyes. His work is of great importance. It's also full of dangers. Field kitchen. It is usually located in a concealed place several kilometers away from the front line. We need to send 1 soldier from each class banner, carrying a huge thermos flask. At the risk of being hit by shells and snipers, deliver hot meals to the frontline positions. Countless soldiers fell in this battle, on the delivery route of several kilometers. Let our comrades wait until dark with an empty stomach. I can become a battlefield cook. It is itself a manifestation of honor and ability. The Soviet Union even had a legendary chef, Ivan Shelikov. In 1941, the unit he was in was attacked by German tanks. My comrades have all retreated. Only he is left in the kitchen. He first harassed with a rifle. And then he actually held an axe. Jump on the German tank. Use an axe, a threshold, and a gun barrel. Then use the observation port of the waterproof department table. In the end, the 4 German soldiers in the tank were forced to surrender. Therefore, the chef received the highest honor of the Soviet Union's hero. This story is widely spread in the military. Also let the character of War Achievement Chef. It has added a touch of legendary color. You're holding your lunchbox. A kind of aluminum. The small pot with provisions is lined up in the queue. The chef is using a huge spoon. Pour a spoonful of hot soup from the thermos flask. Something that is full of energy and vitality. Pour it into your lunchbox. A blend of meat soup. The aroma of vegetables and grains. It spreads in the cold air. You use your fingers that are so cold they're numb, holding the warm lunchbox tightly. It feels like holding the whole world in my hands. We'll do centralized cooking in the future. The pattern of distributing heat at the front line. It reflects the Soviet Army and the American Army. Fundamental differences in logistics concepts. The U.S. military places more emphasis on individual self-sufficiency. They have developed excellent C rations and K rations. Soldier. You can open a can or a bag of snacks anytime and anywhere. Eat a meal that is nutritionally balanced. But the Soviet Army valued it more. The tremendous boost to morale from collective hot meals. But the Soviet Army's field kitchen system, although it can operate normally, it can greatly inspire people's morale, but he is inherently fragile. Centralized node. Once the kitchen is blown up, or the soldiers who deliver meals sacrifice themselves, it means that the whole unit of soldiers will have to suffer. Hungry. But the logistics of the U.S. military is not flawless either. Individual soldiers' rations. It really ensures that every soldier is in any situation. We all have something to eat. But eating cold canned food for a long time. It's a blow to morale. But you at this moment, I won't think about these complicated logistics theories. You only know this bowl of steaming hot food. It's you in this cold hell. The most genuine warmth I can feel. You're greedily eating. Let the heat flow down the esophagus and spread throughout the body. Dispel the deep-rooted meaning. At this moment, you feel like you've come back to life. This spoon of hot food in your lunchbox. It's very likely that it's cassidin. In Russian, this term generally refers to everything cooked with grains. A paste-like food that has been cooked, similar to what we call congee or porridge. But on the front line, he's probably referring to kasha, which is made from buckwheat. Teach grechka in Russian. It's Russian film and television, an indispensable part of culture. In the history of Russia, kassa accompanies all the important moments of life. I'm going to be late at the wedding. We should be late for the baby's baptism, even at the funeral of Kutia. Essentially, it's also a kind of cassidin. She has already transcended the realm of food, become a cultural symbol. This cultural tradition also extends to the military. It is said that in the 18th century, the most famous military strategist in Russia, Marshal Alexander Suvorov, in a tough expedition across the Alps, China, used the confiscated supplies and the soldiers' cautious rations. We cooked a big pot of kasha together. Let the whole army have a good meal. I've regained my energy. From now on, Suvorov's kassa became a legend. And kassa is the mother of soldiers, which is a famous quote. He is also often attributed to his name. But there is no exact source for this famous quote. Many people think that this is more like an old folk saying. Suvorov just made him more famous. But that's enough to prove it. Kasha's special status in the hearts of Russian soldiers, you might think. Isn't it just a bowl of grain paste? What's the big deal? But from the perspective of nutrition, buckwheat, it's simply a strategic material tailor-made for war. First of all, it is a kind of whole grain. The nutritional value is much higher than that of ordinary grains. It has a very high protein content, and it contains all the essential amino acids. It's a rare plant-based complete protein. Moreover, it is rich in fiber and various minerals such as montmorillonite. Soldiers who can engage in high-intensity combat provide lasting energy. What's more important is that the agricultural characteristics of buckwheat were lost in the Soviet Union's Ukraine. Food production is facing a huge crisis. And the growth cycle of buckwheat is very short. It only takes about 10 to 1 or 2 weeks. And it doesn't have high requirements for soil. In relative poverty, it can also thrive in the northern land. This tenacious vitality, which made buckwheat become the Soviet Union's staple food during the war, a valuable food source that we can rely on. We can say that the Red Army was able to keep going non-stop because send soldiers to the battlefield. We can't do without buckwheat. The solid nutritional foundation provided by McCarthy. The approach of cassidin in the battlefield is very simple. Bake buckwheat grains and add water or broth to them. Let's cook it together in a big pot. Add some onions and animal fat. If we're lucky, the chef will scoop out a big piece from the canned stew. Cook with kassa. That is the ultimate deliciousness. But Cautious cooking also tests the chef's skills. If you haven't mastered the heat and the amount of water well, the cassidon I cooked is not fully cooked. The hard buckwheat grains feel awkward in my mouth. The soldiers are disgusted with this failure. There are a lot of nicknames when people complain about something, and a qualified battlefield chef. You must be able to make this simple kasha. Do it just right. Let all the liquid be absorbed. At the same time, the grains are fully ripe both inside and outside. The texture is soft and fluffy. There is also a peculiar thing in jandi. Although it's unlikely to become widespread, traditional kasha cooking method. It is said that some experienced veterans or chefs. I'll briefly boil cassidon. Then immediately take the scalding pot, wrap it up with a thick blanket or a military overcoat, put it in a warm place. For example, in a cellar or a sleeping bag. I've been cooped up for several hours. Use the residual heat to slowly cook the buckwheat until it's done. It is said that the kasha made this way is fluffy and delicious. It's quite unique and refreshing. Of course, in the tense environment on the front line. This is more like a luxurious legend. For you. As long as I can eat a bowl of hot and well-cooked food, the cassidon, I'm already happy enough. Besides cassidon, the most common hot food in your lunchbox is soup. A bowl of hot soup can not only replenish water and salt. It is also the best remedy to dispel the severe cold and untie the knot in our hearts. In the Soviet Army's field kitchen, there are two soups that are absolutely deadly. They are like kasa and black bread. To find your war memories on your tongue. The first one is also the most simple and unsophisticated, the most common Russian cabbage soup. Its history is longer than that of Russia as a country. It's also very old-fashioned. It's a real national treasure. His foundation is very simple, a bowl of meat soup. We usually use the cheapest beef bones or minced meat, made by boiling, then add a lot of cabbage. Fresh cabbage is a rarity on the front line. So we use pickled cabbage more often. The addition of pickled cabbage not only does it make the soup taste sour and refreshing, but also it stimulates your appetite. He provided valuable vitamin C. It is the lifeline for preventing scurvy. Except for cabbage, we'll also put potatoes in the soup. Root and tuber vegetables that are easy to store, such as carrots and onions. A bowl of decent goose food cabbage soup. It should be thick and rich. Not just plain and boring. The second one is much more famous. That's red cabbage soup. Although today, Ukraine and Russia, I often worry about the international issues of borscht. We can't stop arguing. In fact, it's about the cultural ownership of red cabbage soup. So far, it is still in the field of Eastern European film and television culture, and a topic that continues to be controversial. But during World War II, he is the only delicious thing in the whole Soviet Union. The soul of red cabbage soup is beetroot. It gives tona its iconic feature. Bright deep red. Besides beetroot, the ingredients are quite similar to those of cabbage soup. It's also cabbage, potato and carrot. Sometimes I'll add a bit of tomato cake to enhance the flavor and acidity. Of course, you can drink a hot soup like in a battlefield. The version at home in peacetime. This is a world of difference compared to that. It is said that a war correspondent once described it. The soldiers only had a few pieces of cabbage leaves in their soup. A trace of potatoes and buckwheat. I occasionally see a bone. The quality of the soup, it all depends on the chef's conscience. What materials can we get from him? In the most difficult time, in the case of an extreme shortage of supplies, to increase the thickness and nutrition of the soup. Chefs, we might even adopt a very traditional cooking method, techniques to incorporate animal blood. When the logistics troops slaughtered the cattle and sheep that followed the army, we will collect the blood. Slowly stir into the pot while making soup. The proteins in the blood preheat and solidify. It can make thin soup become thick and rich. At the same time, supplement valuable iron. This approach might sound a bit harmful, but it's not uncommon in the history of human cooking. For example, the famous black soup of Spartan warriors in ancient Greece. It's made from pig's blood and pork. In the Soviet Union, there is also a nutritional bar called hermatogen. Its main ingredient is bovine serum albumin. Initially, it was used as a medicine to treat anemia. Later, we also distributed it to the wounded and children to supplement their acidity to the soup. When we run out of vinegar, chefs will use a thing called use those things as a substitute. This is actually pickled cucumber or the brine of pickled tomatoes. These seemingly helpless impulsive actions, but it also created a unique local flavor. You stir up a spoonful of piping hot red cabbage soup with a spoon. The slight sweetness of beetroot, the refreshing taste of pickled cabbage and the savory flavor of the meat together. Warmed your body. It also temporarily soothed the scars of war in your heart. The scars I've suffered at this moment. This simple bowl of soup. You are my whole world. When the situation becomes intense, you are about to be ordered to rush out of the trenches. Before launching an attack in the midst of gunfire and bullets, the sergeant will carry an iron bucket, holding a piece of tin foil. Come over with a good attitude. There is a clear and transparent liquid in the barrel. It emits a pungent smell of alcohol. He will pour a cup for every soldier who wants to drink. Just enough, not too much, exactly, and not too 100 little. Grams. This is the most legendary thing on the Eastern Front battlefield. And the most controversial 100 grams of people's commissar pay. It's just vodka. This is 100 grams of vodka for Peppa. It's August 22, 1941, signed by Stalin himself. Officially established by the Decree No. 562 of the National Defense Committee. According to the law, like the Red Army officers and soldiers who directly participated in the battle, is given 100 grams of 40-degree vodka every day. The official reason is, this can help soldiers overcome their fear, alleviate stress, boost morale, even keep warm from the inside in the severe cold. Although modern medicine has already proven alcohol actually accelerates the loss of body heat, it can't really resist the cold. However, this policy has gone through many twists and turns in the process due to the difficulties in logistics supply and concerns about the demand issue. By May 1942, the policy has been implemented. 100 grams of vodka every day. It's no longer the standard equipment for frontline soldiers, but it has become a kind of reward. Only distributed to the troops who are currently carrying out offensive missions. As for those who are in a defensive state, or the troops in the rear, only on national statutory holidays, only then can you enjoy this special Peppa. This has inadvertently created an alcohol incentive mechanism. Do you want to drink alcohol? Then let's go and fight bravely. Look at the liquid swaying in this measuring cup. Facing a choice. Many young recruits. I will finish it without hesitation. The brief burning sensation and courage brought by alcohol, it seems to help them temporarily forget their fear of death. But there are many experienced veterans who are afraid. But I will shake my hand and refuse. A veteran wrote in his memoir. Young people and inexperienced rounds. They were also the first to fall. The old guys know about vodka. It won't bring any benefits. Alcohol can numb the nerves, reduce the reaction speed. In the ever-changing battlefield, this is often fatal. The actual effect of vodka Peppy. It is still the focus of debate until now. Some people think that, in the Soviet Union, the Red Army faced tremendous pressure and unexpected casualties. Vodka really played a role in stabilizing the morale of the troops. The role of boosting morale. It's a necessary psychological comfort. But another part of people point out that he has seriously affected the discipline and combat effectiveness of the unit. There are records showing that, at certain stages of the Battle of Stalingrad, after the Soviet troops captured the German positions, he was severely punished for drinking all the confiscated alcohol. But we were counterattacked by the German forces. We easily regained our position. What's more, as the Red Army advanced into mainland Germany, we've confiscated more and more alcohol. The problem of reminiscing about the past is also becoming increasingly serious. The retreating German army. We might even intentionally leave a lot of drinks. Hope to weaken the combat power of the Soviet army with this. The darker side is many atrocities against civilians. It's all related to the soldiers' drunken state. Moreover, the official Peppa's vodka is enough. This also led to some soldiers taking risks. Go and get those unknown reserve alcohols. For example, antifreeze, industrial alcohol and so on. It has caused a lot of non-combat alkali sources. Many people have died from poisoning or lost their sight as a result. And in the Transcaucasian front of the Soviet Union, due to the local abundance of wine, the soldiers' vodka. Match a few. It is often replaced with 200 grams of fortified wine, or 300 grams of ordinary Sauvignon Blanc wine. This is probably the entire Eastern Front. The most elegant alcoholic Peppa Pig. Will you finally drink these 100 grams? It depends on your own judgment. He might be a temporary boost of courage. It might also be a deadly poisonous wine that leads to death. Anyway, these 100 grams have become a complex part of this war. But a contradictory wealthy person. The soldiers are responding to the call. Vulnerability and struggles under extreme pressure. When your troops receive the order, we need to conduct a long-distance reconnaissance behind enemy lines, or it's in the process of rapid advancement. When I get out of touch with the main group, the clumsy Gula is a cannon. I can't keep up with your pace. At this time, you have to rely on your provisions. Take that thing off your shoulder. An unattractive canvas bag. The structure is so simple that it only has one main cabin and a rope for ceiling. But he wants to take all your belongings. Reach your hand in. I took out today's rations. The first thing that catches your eye is the main body of the dried food. Suwari is also known as dry bread slices or hard biscuits. They usually slice black bread, made by drying, as hard. It can be directly used as a weapon. I want to eat it. You'd better soak it in hot tea or soup first. Otherwise, your teeth will. We will go through a severe test. According to the regulations, a ration of food, there should be about 600 grams of suwari in here. This is your main source of energy. Next is protein. You might take out a piece of tough smoked sausage. Approximately 100 grams. Or it's a very salty Caspian Sea stir-fried fish that has been salted and dried. Approximately 150 grams. It might also be a pack of salty fried fish wrapped in oil. 200 grams. The common feature of these foods is that they are extremely salty. Convenient for long-term preservation, but the taste? It can only be said that it really tests your taste buds and the longing for water. The most advanced part of the survival kit. It's a few pieces like bricks, hard food concentrate. It was a new technology in the Soviet Union's food industry at that time. It might be a concentrate of pea soup. Another one might be the buckwheat kasha concentrate. Before eating, you need to break them up and put them in the lunchbox. Follow the instructions in the recipe manual. Instructions that are precise to the milliliter. Add boiling water. Only talent can be restored into a bowl of hot soup or a pot of porridge, in order to make the soldiers get used to this novel food. In the early stages of the war, the army will even organize training, require soldiers to eat dry rations every 6 days. Adapt to this kind of labor and the taste of new food. Lastly, you can still find a small package of about 35 grams of sugar, a pinch of salt and a handful of tea leaves. This is all your meals for the day. Monotonous and rough. But besides regular rations, what else can keep you alive? Each soldier should theoretically also carry a copy of "We Cannot Use Our Reserves." It means emergency rations. This ration, it is usually issued before launching a large-scale attack, to prevent the troops from losing contact with logistics after breaking through. In a nutshell, your lunchbox. The Soviet Union's logistics system has been exposed. The biggest strengths and weaknesses. It reflects the system's role in ensuring collective enthusiasm with food. It also contrasts with its situation in simplicity and insufficiency of field rations. Meticulously designed with the U.S. military. Balanced nutrition includes 3 meals, compared with various snacks. Your rations seem incredibly primitive. Behind this, perhaps it also reflects the differences in military thinking between the two countries. The Soviet army emphasized collectivism and patience, while the U.S. military pays more attention to the efficiency of individual soldiers. Self-restraint and self-control. When the muddy autumn is frozen. When the first heavy snowfall came, the Eastern Front has welcomed a new person. He is also the most terrifying commander, General Dong. The severe cold has changed everything about the war, including the relationship between you and food. In a temperature of -30 to 40 degrees Celsius, your body's heat, we are losing at an unprecedented speed. In order to maintain core body temperature, your body needs to burn a huge amount of calories. According to the research of modern military medicine, soldiers who fight in polar environments, you need to consume 4,500 to 6,000 calories every day, and the standard configuration of the Speed Army, even if we can pay you the full amount, it's only about 3,000 to 3,500 calories. A huge energy gap. You can only rely on your own physical reserves to make up for it. At this moment, the food in your backpack is no longer just food. They have also become your enemies. Your black bread has been frozen like a stone. You have to keep it in your heart, close to the skin. Use your precious body temperature to slowly warm it up. Only those who are talented can handle it. The meat soup in the can has frozen into a block of ice. You have to find a way to make a fire before you can eat. Getting drinking water has become a great contributor to our success. You must keep melting the snow. Only need to consume the already scarce fuel. In such an environment, the value of hot food is being infinitely magnified. A bowl of hot soup or kasha. It's not just energy for satisfying hunger. It's even more a life-saving heat source. When the steaming hot meals were delivered to the battlefield, the soldiers will hold their lunch boxes tightly against their faces. My heart is greedily absorbing that little bit of warmth. Then I was reluctant to start eating. Hot food is the most direct way to resist hypothermia and frostbite. The most effective weapon. The status of tea has also become unprecedentedly important. Pep a small handful of tea leaves and 35 candies every day. It has become the thing you're looking forward to the most in a day. Seeing joy in combat. You will gather around a small fire with your comrades. Cook a pot of blood soup in a lunchbox. Brew a strong cup of black tea. Put all the sugar in again. This cup of scalding hot and incredibly sweet tea can quickly replenish energy, dispel coldness, bring a moment of comfort. The soldiers also came up with some unique ways to prepare food in the severe cold. For example, when a truck or a tank passes by, they will take out the frozen canned food, put it in the vehicle, heating on the scorching engine exhaust pipe. Although it's a bit risky, but it's a way that doesn't require making a fire, an effective way to get hot food. From a medical perspective, malnutrition and severe cold are lethal. The combination lacks enough heat. Your body's resistance to cold will drop sharply. The incidence of frostbite and Qianhao will rise sharply. A soldier who has enough to eat and is well dressed. Only by surviving under the rule of General Dong can we survive. And about the process of defeating the Germans in winter. What an important role have you played? It has always been a topic that historians take great pleasure in discussing. The early viewpoint generally believes that it's the harsh winter of the Russian salt warehouse itself. We defeated the Germans who were not well prepared. But modern military history research tends to believe that the root cause of the German army's failure, it's due to the collapse of their logistics system, underestimation of the position of Imperator, as well as our own strategic mistakes. Winter is more like a catalyst. He magnified all the weaknesses of the German army and ultimately overwhelmed them. For you, these macro analyses are also far-reaching. You only know when the cold wind cuts your face like a knife. Every cell in your body. Everyone is screaming and longing for warmth. Food is no longer for providing energy for combat, but to provide calories for survival itself. The process of digesting food, it has already become a battle against the severe cold. Every spoonful of Cassidin in your lunchbox, it's all you use to fight against this coldness, the world's fuel. When your troops are surrounded and isolated by the Germans, or performing tasks behind enemy lines, when the supply was completely cut off first, black bread and casa, all have become unattainable dreams. At this moment, the law of survival has returned to its most primitive state. Make use of local resources, the vast forest and swamp where you are located. It's your battlefield. It must also become your dining table. You and your comrades start to act like hunters. Search for anything edible in the forest. Can you identify the wild vegetables that are common in the Eastern European plains? It might be mushrooms or wild leeks. They are spicy. Flavor can add a touch of excitement to a monotonous diet. Maybe it's sour bread. Its sour leaves can be eaten raw. It can also be used to make soup. If we're lucky, we can still find a layer of golden oil fungi, or the honey fungus growing in patches. But this battlefield vegetable garden is full of dangers. First of all, you must have enough plant blood. The history of fungal blood. Otherwise, it's easy to accidentally eat poisonous plants or mushrooms. For example, a highly toxic fungus that looks similar to some edible mushrooms. If you accidentally eat the fungus, the consequences are unimaginable. Secondly, the battlefield itself is a huge source of pollution. The land beneath your feet, it may be penetrated by the chemical substances in the shell. Wild fruits by the roadside, it may be covered in the toxic dust raised by vehicles. Not to mention, when you are concentrating on digging up tree roots, I might encounter a pair of German patrol soldiers at any moment. An unexpected encounter. When plants can't satisfy your desire for protein. Time. You will cast your gaze on the animals in the water and the forest. Can you use a rifle to hunt rabbits? Fox. Even capturing wild animals in abandoned villages. But the most shocking thing is, it's also the most efficient way to get protein. It's cheating. You will carefully defuse a grenade. The insurance salesman. Count to 2 seconds. Then try your best to throw it into a nearby river or lake. After a dream in Boli, a piece of something will float on the water surface, which is stunned by the shock, or fish that have died from shock. You and your comrades will get into the water quickly. Fetch these spoils of war. This simple and crude way of fishing. On all the battlefields of World War II, in fact, it's the soldiers from all sides who are fighting for food and supplies. Going on a hunger strike. This is a survival method that solves problems on the spot. It is particularly common among the guerrillas fighting behind enemy lines. They don't have a fixed supply line. Survival entirely depends on familiarity with the local environment and the support of the people. They are real experts in wilderness survival. Driven by hunger. Your relationship with this land. There has been a fundamental change. He is no longer just someone you need to get through, or the battlefield for defense. He has become a food source that is both full of opportunities and riddled with pitfalls. Your survival depends not only on the rifle in your hand. It also depends on your understanding of nature. Which mushrooms can be eaten? Which berries are poisonous? Which river has fish? You seem to have regressed into a primitive hunter. The collector uses the oldest method. We are struggling to survive in this most modern war. Just in 1942 and 1943, the food crisis in the Soviet Union reached its peak. You and your comrades, When I'm enduring the most severe hunger. The distant other side of the ocean. Many cargo ships are fully loaded with supplies. It's tough to get through the Arctic route or the Iranian corridor, sailing towards the Soviet Union. This is the famous leasehold law. The United States passed this law. We sent millions of tons of strategic supplies to the Soviet Union, which includes 4.5 million tons of food. Very soon. There are some new and interesting things in your lunchbox. The most striking feature is a flat one. A metal can in blue and yellow colors. You use a bayonet to pry it open. There is a pink one inside. Lunch meat with uniform texture. He smells very good. It tastes salty. The taste is different from what you've had before. Any meat I've eaten is different. This is Spam luncheon meat. He soon became popular among the Red Army soldiers. I've gotten a nickname that's full of dark humor. The Second Battlefield. The story behind this nickname. It's the Soviet soldiers who are talking about the Western Allies. We have been waiting for a long time. A bit of resentment for opening up the Second Battlefield. They joke that we use our flesh and blood too. When the body was resisting the main force of the German army. The Second Battlefield sent by our allies, just in this tiny can. Except for Spam. Concession Act. We also brought many other American specialties. For example, put it in a can, butter and condensed milk. There is also a kind of yellow powder. Just add water and it turns into scrambled eggs. The soldiers call this egg powder Roosevelt's courage. These American foods. For those of you who are used to eating black bread and kasha, it's undoubtedly really delicious. They provided stability and high-quality protein and fat. It has greatly improved your meals. Even Khrushchev, the later Soviet leader. He also confessed in his memoir. There is no Spam. We're afraid we can't feed our army. The weight of this sentence. This is enough to illustrate the importance of these original foods. And during the Cold War period, the Soviet official history tried its best to downplay its role. I often quote a statistic. And the materials in the concession area only accounted for 4% of the Soviet Union's total wartime output value. But many Western historians, even some people, including Marshal Zhukov, Soviet senior generals, everyone thinks that the Sino-Foreign joint venture law is in some key areas played a decisive role. For example, the later stage of the Soviet Union's of the trucks. These are all Studebaker trucks that were donated by the United States. These trucks greatly enhanced the mobility of the Red Army. Sex and logistics. We still have a lot of aviation fuel. Explosives, aluminum materials, it's all the Soviet Union's own fault. The sensitive point of severe capacity shortage. From the perspective of reality, these original works are more like a logistics bridge. He accurately filled in the gaps in the Soviet Union in 1941 to 1942. The loss of Ukraine's granary. The domestic food production system is on the verge of collapse. Recovered the lost territories in 1943 and 1944. The fatal gap between the resumption of production in the rear industries. He not only fed the soldiers on the front line, but also, what's more important is that he liberated hundreds of thousands of people who otherwise would have labor had force engaged in agricultural production. Enable them to enter the factory or join the army. Thus, we can support the operation of the entire war machine. You might not understand these grand strategic significance. You only know when you're in the cold battle uniform. Use the tip of the bayonet. Pick up a piece of greasy American lunch meat. When you put it in your mouth, that sense of satisfaction is real and intense. This canned meat from a foreign country. It gives you more strength. Go and meet tomorrow's battle. Even though your daily meals are basically the same three things every day: black bread, kassa, and soup. But you'll hear some rumors about the food in other units. Those rumors sound like paradise. In the vast system of the Soviet Red Army, not everyone's lunch boxes are the same. In fact, according to different military branches and tasks, there exists at least, within the Soviet 12 different meal standards. The most enviable thing. It's undoubtedly the food for Air Force pilots. The training cost of a pilot is extremely high. The plane they are flying. It's even a more expensive war machine. In order to ensure their physical health and responsiveness in the best condition, the logistics department will provide them with the best food. They're Pekili. There is chocolate that ordinary soldiers rarely get to see. Condensed milk contains more butter and high-quality meat. Kongjun even has his own dedicated independent operations. Daily provisions. It's usually a meal that includes canned meat or fish. And an independent package of a chocolate. Submariners also enjoy the same privileges. In a narrow place, carry out tasks in a depressing underwater environment for a long time. It's a huge test for both body and mind. Therefore, their food standards are also much higher than those of the ordinary army. A document from the Soviet Union during World War II. The menu of the submarine has been preserved. The content above is simply impossible to carry out. There is cheese for breakfast, bacon and eggs. There is pickled fish for dinner, longsong soup with chicken and pasta. There's even smoked salmon for dinner. Caviar and a glass of wine for each person. Even though we are both on land, the meals in different units also vary. For example, reconnaissance soldiers who carry out reconnaissance tasks you will receive additional supplies before departure, including extra sugar, lard and bread, to ensure they have enough energy. Complete high-intensity tasks. The food for tank soldiers. It is said that they are also better than ordinary infantrymen. After all, they are operating the king of land warfare. But the specific information is relatively scarce. The difference in meals between officers and soldiers. It's a rather delicate topic. Official regulations often declare that officers and soldiers are equal. There is no difference in the meal standard. But in actual operation, officers always have more. There are many opportunities to improve your own meals. For example, at dinner time, the soldiers may only have soup and bread. And on the officers' dining table, then we will have an extra dessert of stewed fruits. Moreover, officers can also use their own allowances. Buy milk extra in the officers' canteen. Eggs and other foods. This is something that ordinary soldiers can't aspire to. This hierarchical system in meals. In fact, the ruthlessness reflects the Soviet military evaluation of the value of its personnel. A pilot or a submariner has gone through a long period of time. High-cost training. They themselves and the expensive equipment they operate, both are regarded as more valuable strategic assets. Provide them with better food. Essentially, it's a kind of protect the investment in these high-value assets, and you are just an ordinary person. Although it is the cornerstone of war, but in the eyes of the vast war machine, you're much more replaceable. Therefore, the piece of chocolate in the pilot's mouth. It's a luxury for you. But for the army, that's just for an expensive weapon system. Do daily maintenance. And the most terrifying thing in war is not the charge. It's not artillery fire either, but I was completely forgotten. When you're in the army, the advancing offensive of the German army, and when you get trapped in a siege called Big Pot, you have entered the most pure form of war. A countdown to survival. The supply line has been completely cut off. The smoke from the field kitchen has already gone out. You've eaten the last piece of dry bread. I licked off the last trace of oil stains on the can. Hunger is like an invisible hand. Hold on to your stomach tightly. In this desperate situation, the definition of food has been completely subverted. The most extreme example, there is nothing more terrible than the 900-day siege of Leningrad. In this city that is completely locked down, the rations of the common people have been repeatedly reduced. At the lowest, each person can only get 125 grams of bread per day. And the ingredients of this 125-gram bread are also quite disappointing. To increase the volume, in the flour, mixed with all the fibrous substances we can find. Cotton porcelain biscuit and oatmeal. There is even sawdust and cellulose. People have eaten all the pets in the city. Pigeons and mice. They scraped off the wallpaper, eat the paste on top after boiling it. They put the belt, cooking leather shoes for a long time. I hope to get a little bit of gelatinous protein. In this state of extreme hunger, your body is starting to betray you. Without the intake of fresh vegetables and fruits, scurvy is starting to spread. Your gums are starting to bleed. The swollen teeth become loose. Even a tiny wound can't heal. My body has become extremely weak. I can't even walk steadily. Hunger is not just a lack of calories. What's more, we lack the ability to maintain the necessary trace elements. About the exact number of deaths at Leningradsky Vokzal Station. The official figures released by the Soviet Union were more than 630,000 people. But according to many demographic analyses conducted later, the actual death toll may be far more than 1 million. The vast majority of them died from hunger, not from gunfire. In Leningrad Vyborg Station, there is a company named Wawalo that has been established. The institution of the Plant Cultivation Research Institute. There is preserved the largest plant in the world at that time. Species Seed Bank. He is a botanist named Nikolai. The crystallization of Vavilov's lifelong efforts during the entire siege. The scientists at the Research Institute. The edible seeds of Chandun. Grains and nuts are all around. They have thousands of tons of rice, wheat and corn, beans and potatoes. However, in that winter when we were the hungriest, there have been 9 scientists in succession. They literally starved to death at their posts. They didn't eat a single seed. Because they know. These seeds are the future of Soviet agriculture. It's the hope that people can get rid of hunger after the war. They used their own lives. We have safeguarded these future food supplies, and when in the official accessories system, a frontline that often fails to perform, an unofficial one. A vibrant underground economy system is quietly taking shape. Here, you are no longer a soldier passively waiting for supplies, but a shrewd economic participant. The currency of this market, it's not the jingling rubles, but those things that can keep you alive. In this Jersey market, the value system has been completely reshaped. A pair of dry wool socks. In the muddy winter, it may be more precious than gold. A pack of tobacco is the only consolation in the long port watch. Of course, there is also food. The piece of black bread you get every day. That little bit of sugar. And that 100 grams of vodka. These are all your most important deals. Capital transactions are everywhere. You probably don't smoke, so you will use your tobacco to match yourself. Go and exchange it for an extra piece of bread from our comrades. You might think, vodka will make you feel dizzy before a fight. So you exchanged it for a small piece of lard. You can spread it on bread to increase the calorie content. This exchange of black clothes. We made limited resources available to all soldiers. More efficient secondary distribution. When American goods started to appear in the concession area, they immediately became part of the city. Luxury goods and hard currency on the field. The value of a pack of Camel cigarettes. It's much more expensive than a few packs of Soviet White Sea brand cigarettes. A delicious piece of chocolate, or a can of Spam luncheon meat. You can even get a lot of good things in return, even some non-material services. For example, ask your comrades to take your shift when the troops are stationed in areas where the poor live nearby. This market will continue to expand. Will you use your canned meat or sugar? To the local villagers, in exchange for their own fresh milk. An egg or a jar of homemade pickled cucumbers. This kind of transaction is usually two-way. The villagers also need the salt in your hands, matches or fabric. Although this behavior it is not allowed according to military regulations, but in the face of harsh reality. It's a way of survival that both parties can benefit from. Of course, this underground economy also has its dark side. Corrupt logistics officers. We will deduct the supplies in the warehouse, and then sell it at a high price in the black market. Some brave soldiers will steal supplies. Or we can take advantage of the situation when delivering food. These behaviors unintentionally exacerbated the plight of ordinary food. But starting from 1943, you feel that everything has changed. The victory of Stalingrad is like a thunderclap. Shook the entire front line. The tank battle of Kursk. This completely reversed the situation of attack and defense in the Eastern Front. You are no longer the one who is constantly retreating. New recruits who are unsure of their future. You have become a veteran who has gone through many battles. Following the unstoppable momentum of the Red Army, we have started an unprecedented major counteroffensive, advanced towards Berlin in the west. Follow your footsteps. What's your food situation? There have also been earth-shaking changes. First of all, logistics has become unprecedentedly smooth. This is largely due to, we should attribute it to the lease. Hundreds of thousands of American cars were sent by the Baker truck. These are all reliable cars. Cars replaced the old-fashioned horse carriages. Became the absolute main force of the Soviet Union's logistics. Can be more rapid, more reliably transport food from the rear using a rope. The frequency of Gulas's appearances is getting higher and higher. You've even started to get a bit tired of it. Spam luncheon meat. And Ross's egg. Because they come from rare luxuries. Become a regular in your lunchbox. Secondly, you have returned to your hometown. As the army liberated Ukraine and Belarus, you saw that place with your own eyes, the black soil, which is renowned as the granary of Europe. Although we have been devastated by wars, but he still started to work for the army, provide fresh agricultural products. You've started to include more diverse vegetables in your soup. You can even eat fresh pork. Not just dried fish and canned food. What makes you feel most proud of? You can do it frequently now. We've confiscated the Germans' rations. You opened the German army's iron ration package for the first time. What's inside will surprise you. Pack as much canned meat as possible. It's usually beef or pork. A small jar of lard or margarine. There's also something wrapped in waterproof paper, very solid rye bread. Overall, the individual rations of Germany, it looks more delicate and high calorie. You and your comrades will be very straightforward. Divide these spoils of war. This is not just about satisfying our hunger, it is also a symbol of victory. At the end of 1944, the Germans launched their last counterattack in the Ardennes forest. That is, during the Battle of the Bulge. Due to the collapse of logistics, many German soldiers are in a state of hunger. After they captured the US military position, I greedily ate the high-calorie food of the US Army. After eating high-fat K rations and C rations, many people have gotten used to hunger for a long time because of their stomach. Instead, I experienced severe vomiting and diarrhea. I've lost my fighting spirit. Food. Sometimes it can also become an unexpected weapon. When you cross the national border of Surin, enter Poland, Romania. When I finally set foot on German soil, the food on your dining table, it's also becoming more and more internationalized. You're starting to eat cheese that you've never seen before. Drink real coffee. Of course, this rich diet, to a large extent, it is based on the expropriation of the occupied areas. Retreated in hunger in 1941. By 1945, we were eating the captured German sausage. Advanced to Berlin. The contents of your lunchbox are like a barometer. It accurately reflects the direction of this war. The change in food. It's just a condensed history of the Eastern Front War. Berlin in May 1945. The air is filled with the smell of gunpowder, the smell of dust and death. After several weeks of brutal street battles, the capital of the Third Reich. It has already turned into a pile of tiles. You're leaning against a broken wall, looking at the red flag rising on the Gucci building. I feel a mix of emotions in my heart. The war is finally going to end. Just in this ruin, you saw a familiar scene. Many field kitchens were pushed out onto the streets. Once again, wisps of smoke rose from the cluster of houses, but this time, people who are waiting in line to get food. Besides you, these sincere winners. There are still tens of thousands of people who are emaciated
German
and haggard. Civilians with vacant eyes. You've arranged a Victory Day banquet. There is no champagne. There is no roasted goose. What's in your lunchbox? It's still those two most familiar foods. A spoonful of steaming buckwheat kasha. A bowl of rich red cabbage soup. Plus a big piece of thick black bread. Of course, there's also a double vodka to celebrate our victory. This meal is related to the past 4 years of your life. Most of the meals I've eaten are all the same. But the taste is completely different. Because this is the taste of victory. You're eating while watching those who quietly take a share, the Germans' food. 4 years ago, it was their country that formulated the plan aimed at, I'm going to starve you and your compatriots to death with my hunger plan, and 4 years later, but you're here using your gura's big gun. Provide them with the necessities to survive. History has played a huge and ironic joke. In Moscow, to celebrate the victory, people poured into the streets to celebrate wildly. It is said that in less than 24 hours, the entire stock of vodka was sold out during the event. The whole capital is immersed in alcohol and joy. Until I sobered up the next day, I just realized that we've run out of wine. That's a country that has paid more than 20 million, after the cost of life. The moment to let loose and enjoy to the fullest. And you are on the streets of Berlin. I've finished the last bite of kasha. I've finished my last sip of vodka. You wiped your mouth, looking at this unfamiliar and broken world. That home-cooked meal in the summer of 1941. This triumphant dinner in the spring of 1945. Your sense of taste has already carried too much history. The panic of hunger. The sourness of black bread. The warmth of hot soup. The spiciness of vodka. The salty and fragrant taste of silk foam. All these flavors. Together, we make up your perception of this event. All the memories of the war. This is not just a story about food. This is about an ordinary person. How to survive in the most brutal war in human history. Survive on the most basic food. And ultimately tell the story of victory. The war is over now.